Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Jeff Schechter. Thanks for being on the show, Jeff.
Thank you for having me, Whitney. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to get into this conversation. And Jeff started his first business right out of college, and over the years been involved in numerous business ventures. His love for real estate investing began in the 1980s when he rehabbed 5 of his own residences before the term house hacking even existed. Since those early days of torn up kitchens and bathrooms, he's bought and sold many properties and is an active investor to this day. In addition to investing, he operates a private consulting practice. He thrives on helping people realize their full potential, not just in business and investing, but in all aspects of life. So Jeff, give the listeners a little more about just what you're doing right now, your background, maybe in real estate and your focus right now. And then, I loved what you mentioned before the show about improper systems will keep things broken or from happening. I'd love to dig into that a little bit, but go ahead and tell the listeners a little more about who you are.
Yeah, sure. So, obviously by that, thank you for the nice intro. And in there, we talked a little bit about house hacking, and, I've been a pretty scrappy guy and an entrepreneur my whole life. And probably between the 2002 to 2008 period, I also had a flipping business. So among other things, I kind of eventually graduated from just house hacking into actual flipping. And we all know what happened in 2008 and got my ass pretty much handed to me on a silver platter and started over. And at that time, I was very curious about internet marketing and moved to Austin, Texas. I was living in San Antonio, and there's a great digital marketing community there, and I got very involved in all that stuff. And that's ultimately through some consulting how I met my current partner. He was actually buying some properties in Indianapolis and getting some pretty good returns. And we started learning about this concept called turnkey, which I had actually, even though I was involved in real estate, had never really heard about before. And I gave him some marketing advice that apparently that he really liked and invited me to become his business partner. So today, I now live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we operate a very, very successful turnkey company. And for those of you who don't know what that is basically we just provide an end-to-end system for investors. So, we acquire the property, we rehab to certain standards, we have our own property management team, we place the tenant, we get it performing, cash flowing, and then and only then do we sell it off to investors as a performing asset. So that's kind of what I'm up to now, and it's been a challenging start, but we're very excited about where we are now because we've finally got a pretty decent and successful company.
Nice. And, what I appreciated too, like before we started recording, was just how you mentioned the key to your success has been in systems. And I'd love for us to get into that and you elaborate on these systems that have helped you to be successful. Whether it's syndication, whatever type of real estate or any business, really, you got to have some systems in place if you plan to grow, right? And so, let's dig into that and please elaborate.
Well, there are about 10,000 examples that I can give you, but I can tell you where it starts is from really making some really, really stupid mistakes. And some of them were really, really big, devastatingly financial mistakes. And it started with the question, obviously, how can we keep this? How can we prevent this from happening again? Because otherwise, we're not going to have a business. I mean, there were just really, really big, stupid mistakes. So when we first started our company, we would just go out and find a property and we would actually rehab it while it was owned with the investor. Like our logic was that, hey, if we sell to the investor shortly after we purchase, we kind of eliminate our hold times and our hold costs. But then what happens is we run into mistakes and we run into surprises on rehabs and things like that. And then we're already in bed with the investor, and there's ourselves here in Indianapolis, an investor maybe somewhere in California, helping to make the decisions. So, it's a classic case of too many cooks spoil the pot, right? So, then from there we'd get the thing finished, and sometimes it would be a few days, sometimes it would be a few weeks, and sometimes it would be a few months until that property got leased out. And the entire time, of course, the investor is freaking out, going, where's my cash flow? Where's my cash flow? So, when we finally started recognizing, like, okay, the money that we're saving on hold costs by selling it early is absolutely not worth it. And we made a decision to say, we are only going to sell properties after they're done being rehabbed. Once we know exactly what our costs were, all that kind of stuff, we can make a fair profit. We can get to some fair numbers for the investor. It puts us on the hook to make sure that the end price is obviously something that's attractive to the end investor from an ROI standpoint. So it puts the responsibility on us. We then were still selling properties that weren't quite tenanted and ran into that whole issue with investors waiting for stuff to be cash flowing. So ultimately, even though, again, it increased our hold times, we went to a situation where the only properties that we would sell were after they were performing and stabilized and things like that. So, those were some pretty key decisions in our evolution. And the other one that was really probably the biggest one, and this doesn't matter whether you're in syndication buying one property 500 or the tallest skyscraper in the world, but unless you have a property, there's only two things that equate to success in a real estate investment. One is you got to have a property that's in good condition. Secondly, you have to have a happy tenant. Because if either one of those is out of whack, you are going to have problems and you're going to have expenses that are beyond what you had anticipated. So you have to start from there in any project. And I see a lot of even syndication products that don't start that way. And it's unfortunate where the building that they're getting into is not necessarily rehabbed, and they don't necessarily have the right marketing for the right tenant, and it's not maybe necessarily the right use of that building. There's lots of different ways that can go awry. So those two things you have to start. So we started looking at, we offer a warranty on our property, and it's all the major systems, obviously roof and HVAC and foundation and, electrical, plumbing, et cetera. And as soon as we all know this, as soon as tenants start getting into properties, whether they're commercial tenants or residential tenants, they're going to put that property to the stress test, right? They're going to, They're going to test the plumbing. They're going to test the electric. If the roof's going to leak, it's probably not going to leak the day before they move in. It's going to start leaking, ironically, the day right after they move in, right? So we were on the hook for all these warranty issues. So in addition to doing this rehab, now we're having to come back and start fixing properties that we thought we already fixed them. So probably the biggest system that we ever put in place was we really, really got our rehabs dialed in. So we said, hey, look, when we go acquire the property, we have some pretty good teams, and we use some internal teams and some external teams for the contracting. But what could we do in terms of a third party out there that might be able to tell us the condition of the property? We thought, hey, why don't we do an inspection up front? Let's just pay some impartial third-party company. What's it going to cost us? $300-$400 to go and find out exactly what's wrong with the structure. Then we go and we send our teams, and we've developed a 41-point checklist. So we check everything and subflooring, and are the toilets on straight, and is the stress test of the plumbing, and obviously we turn all the utilities on first. But we're going.
It sounds like you all were, just like as a problem would come up, it was like, okay, how do we fix this? And it allowed you to create better systems. So now obviously you're functioning at a higher level now because you've created systems to alleviate those problems initially. But how has that helped you to face bigger problems possibly now, or problems change, right? You learn more about the industry, you learn more about the business, and the type of problems you have 5 years in are a little different sometimes than the ones you have when you're first getting started.
Yeah.
They're not the same problems. And so how has that helped you all to face those issues now or to create systems at a higher level?
Well, I think one of them is, you bring up a good point. It's just attitude. So, when you're first starting a business, getting it off the ground is probably the hardest part. And, it's like everything seems so overwhelming because you don't really have a lot of revenue at the beginning to help fight off some of these problems. So you're just, you're hungry for every sale, and you're doing things that are not necessarily very systemized. We look at it now as that systems will set you free. So, anytime we start seeing any kind of trend, it's like, this guy said something, this investor said something particular about this property. He was looking, for example, for a little bit more transparency. Well, how do I know the condition of the property? How do I know you did your rehab? Blah, 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 blah. So we started hearing that. We started going, well, these investors are looking to do an inspection after we're done, right, before they purchase, but that's gumming up our sales process. What if we just ordered another inspection, right? And then we would have a full report. We would have two reports. We would have the beginning and the end, and we would be able to provide our scope of repairs and the second inspection as well to the investor. And that made all the difference in the world. It just completely made that problem go away. We smoothed out our closing process. We rarely have an investor going, well, gosh, you're showing me two inspections, but I still don't trust you enough I'm going to order a third. It's like, well, okay, for a guy like that, it's probably not somebody we want to do business with us, because we feel like, okay, we don't want to enter into a relationship where there's zero trust. So, so looking at that stuff in terms of, we can make our company better and more streamlined by doing this. It's going to be painful a little bit to put the process in, but once it's in, it's going to be smooth sailing. And that's just served us really well. And of course, now we've got the revenues and the teams and the, the brain power with our teams to go like, hey, what's the best way for us to fix this? And we meet all the time to talk about this stuff, pretty much every week. And we see how things are going.
That in itself is a system, isn't it? Discussing those things on a weekly basis with your team to create better systems. And I like how you mentioned, like, systems will set you free. And I can't agree more, because it's stressful when you think of all these tasks or all these things that you need to remember, right? Or you think you need to remember, or these things you need to get, accomplish on a daily basis to keep, a large real estate business functioning. But when you have systems in place, well, then now you have team members, or you have other people that can do some of those things. But if you don't have that system, well, how do you expect your team member to even know what to get done?
Right. Yeah, it's exactly true. And we had one of our challenges was obviously getting contractors to do things the way you want. I mean, that's kind of like herding cats. And we actually put a tablet-based or phone-based checklist out in the field for them. And if they can't even manage that, then they're not working for us. It's just that simple. So they go through everything.
So in your bio, it mentioned about, you have a consulting practice and you're helping people realize their full potential. I'd love for you to elaborate on that a little bit as well, and helping the listener to realize their full potential, maybe not just in business, but I know you mentioned, investing in all aspects of life, and, help us to think through that a little bit and what that looks like.
So I mentioned earlier that I was involved in the digital marketing community, and it started by just helping a lot of business owners with some of their digital marketing. But it has since morphed into really probably bleeding over a lot more into personal development. I think that the people that are most successful in anything typically have the highest belief level in themselves and the highest belief level in their potential outcomes. I think generally the nature of the human condition is we just don't give ourselves enough credit for the amazing beings that we all are. And so a lot of what I do with people is just to help them understand that a lot of the roadblocks that they think they are having, whether it's in their business or in their personal life, are really self-imposed. And it's interesting to watch when you can really see somebody start to understand that. I had a friend in Austin that has become a big, self-development guru. And I don't think this was necessarily his original statement, but, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
Hey there, Brandon Hall here, CEO of the Real Estate CPA. Many investors, general partners, and limited partners alike only speak to their CPAs once per year during tax season. If this sounds like you are probably paying thousands of dollars more in taxes than you actually need to. In order to minimize your tax liability, you have to take a proactive approach to tax strategy and planning. That's done by speaking to your CPA and implementing the right tax strategies throughout the year, not only once a year. Join us at one of our free virtual workshops to discover top tax strategies general partners and limited partners can be using to reduce taxes. This offer is only available to listeners of the Real Estate Syndication Show. Seats are limited. Sign up for a virtual workshop today by visiting www.therealestatecpa.com/syndication.
So, as if to say, we're always going to have a certain amount of pain. I mean, I'm probably the most positive guy in the world, but even with that, there's no way you can look at life and go, everything is just puppies and unicorns. It just, life doesn't work that way. Life is a roller coaster and there are ups and downs. And probably my favorite word is the word bittersweet. And life is very bittersweet. But the point is that it helps to embrace that entire spectrum. Like if you don't know what bitter is, how can you appreciate sweet? You just, if everything is just this constant state of joy, it was kind of boring. I mean, I'm very
don't appreciate it, do you?
Well, it's just like you don't have the yin and the yang. You don't have the opposite perspective to really, understand the juicy good stuff. And I know it sounds almost harsh in a way, but the more you sort of look at the challenges that you have in life and some of the, maybe not so happy times, the more that it can allow you, if you let it, to appreciate even just the little things. I mean, yeah. I moved to the Midwest. I freaking hate the winters here. It's horrific, especially coming from Texas. Today I drove into the office and it's May and it's, it's finally starting to warm up and everything is green and it's beautiful. And I'm driving and it's like, I am thinking to myself, I am super appreciative. It's not a big deal. I'm just driving to work, but I got the sunroof open. I got the stereo on. The weather is like 70 degrees. It's perfect. It's like, I am super appreciative of that. But I'm partially super appreciative because I know what a crappy winter I just went through.
It's a lot of mindset, isn't it? And Jeff, do you have, some habits or maybe a morning routine or something like that that helps you, stay in that mindset?
There's a lot of talk out there about morning routines, and I suck at that stuff. So I guess what I'm telling everybody is you don't have to have a morning routine to be successful, contrary to what the guys that are peddling the morning routine say. That said, I do agree that it is important to get up on the right side of the bed. So when I get up in the morning, very simply, first of all, I'm a health nut and I drink a ton of water. I'm probably drinking a liter of water, of clean water when I wake up, because you get very, very dehydrated when you sleep. And that gets everything going. And then from there, I just do a little bit of light stretching. I will sit for maybe 3 minutes. I wouldn't call this a meditation. What am I grateful for? What is it that, I really how do I want to show up in the world today? Let me set the tone for that. And sometimes that's just a little bit of, a little jumping jack or whatever, just to get the blood moving. And that's it. It's not a workout, right? Because I'm kind of rolling fast to get to work, and we're all kind of scrambling in the morning, and it's really hard to go, I'm just going to dedicate this 90 minutes to my morning routine. I mean, it's nice to be able to do that, but I do that, and then I usually do yoga in the evening, and that's also my chance to get away from everything and get into myself and get into my body. But I find that it is important, whether it's a morning routine or any other time, to at least carve out some time for yourself. Doesn't matter whether you're married, kids, 23 businesses, you got to carve out a little bit of time every day. It's like a little sanity break.
Need some breathing time, don't you? Outside of your mind. I know mine. It's like every minute I'm thinking of like what has to be done or what, how can I improve this? What, just what, it's my mind just constant. Right. And so even in the mornings when I try to have that time of just reading or praying or whatever, it's like it's so hard for me to focus sometimes on something else, outside of the business. I have to really, really try to do that. But give us some of your best marketing advice, for people in this industry, or maybe some tips, some things we should think about as far as marketing that you've learned and instilled in your business.
Well, I think the biggest one that most people don't realize is that, we do all of our marketing online. And so we're starting to see the evolution of online marketing. And it's very clear that the hype stuff has gotten really, really worn out. And we have built a really, really great business kind of by sucking and admitting our mistakes. So in other words, we've just been transparent. It's like, look, we're investors. We're successful most of the time. Sometimes we make mistakes. We always own up to our mistakes and we fix them, but we continue to improve all the time. And that, that's all you can do. Here's what we are. Here's what we do. We're not trying to be something that we're not. And in the age of social media, it's like everybody wants to be the guru, right? Everybody wants to be like the expert, the authority. Oh, go speak on stage. Go, write 12 books. And there's nothing wrong with speaking on stage. There's nothing wrong with writing books, assuming you're providing value. But I see that there are many of the stuff is being done not necessarily to provide value, but mostly to show authority. And there's no question that it can work, but I think that the real exchange here is in value. And I think that we have to really get back to basics. When you can just put content and information out there that provides real value to your true audience, you're going to win. They're going to come back. And certainly there's lots of tricks and, there's retargeting and, getting in front of people multiple times with similar messages and things like that. But I obviously can tell this is really important to me because I worked in the social media business for a while and I saw all the smoke and mirrors. I essentially worked for a guru. And it's not to say that he didn't provide value, he did, but a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. And I want to encourage anybody that's doing any kind of marketing online at all, just be real, just be who you are, right? Make it about your customer, make it about what their benefits are, not how great you are. Because at the end of the day, everybody's freaking selfish. They just are, right? I mean, we look at what you just said about your mind. What have I got to do? What have I got to take care of? We're all living with this ego, with this big I. That's just part of the human condition. So you have to understand that your customers are too. And if you're putting together a big syndication, your customers are those investors. They're thinking selfishly. So how can you put the information in front of them that's going to speak to their selfishness, that's going to scratch their itch?
I like that a lot. And I liked how you said, y'all built a business by messing up and admitting your mistakes. And that transparency goes a long ways though. Even if that was years ago and you all showed a great transparency and just admitted your mistake and came through it, made it right. The people that stuck with you through those times are like probably lifelong investors or lifelong partners now.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've definitely got some loyalty and we made some pretty big screw ups and we came out of pocket to fix them and we made our investors whole. And not that we had a legal obligation, but we felt an ethical obligation. And then, in the real estate business, as you know, a lot of it is relationships and, even on big syndication deals. And so we wanted to have good relationships. And so we just said, well, how would we want to be treated? So that's true. And no matter whether it's a $50,000 deal or a $50 million deal, it's still going to be based on good key relationships. And am I doing business with somebody who I trust?
And Jeff, what's some way that you've recently improved your business that we could all apply to ours?
Well, I think we covered a lot of systems.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, for us, again, it's just really the thing that's probably helped us the most is the whole transparency, especially of the rehab process. So just by saying, look, we had a problem, here's how we took care of it. Like, we even go so far after the second inspection is we'll send one of our team members back to cure any small items, and they take pictures of what they did, and they have a sign-off sheet that they verify that they took care of these outstanding items on the inspection. So when we put in front of an investor, look, here's what the numbers look like. It's rented. Here's how it's performing right now. This is not a projection of, maybe fake increased rents or future appreciated value or any of that kind of. Here's how it's performing right now. Here's exactly what we did to the property. Here was the first inspection. Here's the second inspection. Here's a copy of your warranty. Here's the before pictures. Here's the after pictures. Again, it's going back to being selfish, right? So most people are lazy. We know that. It's not a judgment call. It's just an observation. So here's a way, Mr. Investor or Mrs. Investor, I don't want to be sexist, to do your due diligence in a very easy way. Right? Now, we recognize, you might look at other things. You might look at school systems, crime maps, whatever, right? That's fine. Those things may be important to you. But here's exactly, we're just opening up the kimono. And this way, when somebody says yes, they know what they're saying yes to. And when they say no, we know that they're saying no for some reason. And that's okay. We're fine with no. That just means that this particular property isn't a good fit for you. And thankfully, we're also in a great position that, if you don't buy it, somebody else is going to buy it like 5 minutes from now, because our deals are amazing and we sell everything we get. So we've started developing.
What's a way that you are able to be that transparent? Like, is there a system or is there a tool? Is there something that you use for you all to be that transparent? Or is it just that people can ask anything they want? Or how does that work?
We've developed, one of the things we've done is we've standardized a packet that goes out to the investor. So again, it's just systems. So we have the generic package, which shows all of our contracts, right? And talks about how we handle the taxes in Indiana and utilities. And it's just like a basic overview information. Here's our property management contract. Here's our purchase agreement. So you know exactly what you're getting into contractually if you do business with us. Then we have another packet that is, and these are all e-packets, by the way, they're all online, but we use a very sophisticated folder system. It's kind of like, it's called Ignite, but if anybody's curious, but it's like Dropbox on steroids. So we build the packet in especially the same exact way every time. So if an investor is looking at more than one properties, they can go through it in a very nice linear way, and they can see all of those parts and pieces, and they're just there. All they got to do is open the folder. So they're not even having to ask for it. They're asking for information about the property. Here's these two huge components. It's like, wow, they're blown away by that, which I love. Right?
I like that a lot.
Because they're not having to ask. We've anticipated.
And then what's the number one thing that's contributed to your success, Jeff?
Well, I think we've covered it. I mean, it's just, looking for the mistakes and continually fixing them. And we're going through some stuff on the property management side too, where we're correcting some of our repeat mistakes right now. And it never ends. There's an expression in Japanese called Kaizen, which you may or may not have heard of. But Kaizen in literal means constant improvement. And I think that any entrepreneur, it does not matter what level you are at of entrepreneur, you could have a lemonade stand on the corner and be that small of an entrepreneur, or be doing $50 million projects. It still, always boils down to that. And, you just have to be always willing to constantly improve, because look, the world is moving very, very fast. And we watch our competitors very closely. Oftentimes we help each other, and that's great. But if I see somebody doing something that I'm not, I'm going, what is good about that or bad about that for our organization? Could that benefit our investors? Could that help run a more streamlined operation? So I am always looking, always. And I think any entrepreneur needs to never let that guard down.
And how do you like to give back?
Well, I do a lot of my consulting is free. So I give back a lot that way, and I really enjoy helping a lot of other entrepreneurs and help them get started. And it's not necessarily always in the real estate business. And we also do some stuff, charitable stuff. My business partner, who lives about 3 hours away, is very involved in building stuff out in his local community. And that's been really great. And we're eyeing, as we obviously continue becoming more profitable, we're eyeing other ways right now to provide more shelter homes to other people that struggle with that around the world.
Nice. No, I appreciate that, Jeff. And you've been a great guest, Jeff. I really appreciate your time and just how you've elaborated how important systems are, how it's allowed you all to fix problems. And now, you have those things in place and it helps you to grow faster. And you mentioned systems will set you free. I really like that. And, but tell the listeners how they can learn more about you and get in touch with you.
Well, our company is called High Return Real Estate. And so our website's the same, highreturnrealestate.com. And all of our properties and systems and how we do things are well documented on that site. We also, have a podcast made more for buy and hold investors. And, for the sake of keeping things consistent, it's called the High Return Real Estate Show that I do with my amazing business partner, Jack Gibson. And and we've got a YouTube channel, the High Return Real Estate channel. So it's easy to find us. And, if you've got any questions at all, you can certainly reach out. There's all kinds of contact forms on the website.
Great. Jeff, thank you again for your time and being on the show. Hope the listeners will reach out to Jeff and check out his podcast as well. Hope you'll go to LifeBridge Capital and connect with me and go to the Facebook group, The Real Estate Syndication Show, so we can all learn from experts like Jeff and grow our businesses together. I hope you're sharing the show. I would appreciate that, and we will talk to each of you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.